Welcome back, Super Brain, and how was yesterday for you? Did you enjoy what you learned in the location method? Did you build out your home list? Do you have 1 through 10 and 11 through 15? Maybe you went to 20. Maybe some people went to 25 or even 30. I loved the location technique. Whereas yesterday we focused on how to memorize the key points to a speech, in this lesson, I'm going to show you the secret on how to memorize that speech word for word. So you could apply this towards music lyrics, you could apply this towards poetry, you could apply this towards a sales script, or if you're on Broadway, this is a lot of what I teach with Hollywood stars to help actors memorize their lines quicker. And here, we can't go through a whole entire program, but I'm going to give you like 8 keys. 8 quick tips, if you will, on how to memorize scripts word for word. And there are these 8 R's. You know how I like to iterate everything because it makes it more memorable. So the first R on how to more quickly memorize lines word for word, the first thing you do is you read. You read, right? You read what you need to be able to memorize. Now I'm going to give you a brain hack here, and this is one of our speed reading hacks on how to boost your focus and boost your speed. Because how many people would like to read faster? How many people, when you're reading, you have trouble focusing on what you need to read? You'll get to the end of the page and just forget what you just read, and your mind is wandering, you're getting easily distracted. Now, one of the reasons why your mind gets distracted and you lose focus is because you're reading too slowly. You have this super brain. We all have these super brains, but when you read, you feed it one word at a time. Metaphorically, you're starving your mind. And if you don't give your brain the stimulus it needs, it'll seek entertainment elsewhere in the form of distraction. Let me say that again. If you don't stimulate your brain, it'll go elsewhere in the form of distraction or mind wandering. It's similar to if you're driving a car. If you're driving a car only going slow, you're not really focused on the act of driving, right? What are you doing? You're doing 5 different things. You're drinking your brain tea, you're thinking about the dry cleaning, you're having a conversation with someone, you're trying to text, you're not texting because that's bad to do, but you can be doing 5 things when you're going slow. But if you're racing cars, like fast, on a raceway, are you thinking about the dry cleaning? Are you trying to text? Are you talking to somebody else? No, you're focused completely on what's in front of you. And that's similar to reading. One of the big myths or lies is that if you read faster, your comprehension will go down. But if you're trained properly, in actuality, by reading faster, your comprehension will go up because your focus is better. So I'm gonna give you a quick tip on how to read faster. Really, really quick tip is this. Use a visual pacer while you read. A visual pacer will boost your reading speed and focus 25 to 50%. Now, it's not the 300% that we usually get with our students, but 25, 50% really adds up. And so what you do is you underline the words using your finger while you read. It could be a pen, it could be a highlighter, it could be a mouse on the computer. And the reason why using a visual pacer helps you to read faster and have better focus is because your eyes are attracted to motion. So you're not skipping anything, you're not skipping words or scanning or anything else like that, because I'm a memory expert. I want you to remember what you read. Without even skipping anything, using your finger while you read, you'll boost your reading speed 25, 50%. So I encourage you, the first R for remembering lines is to read it. So the second R in memorizing lines faster is to reflect on what you're reading. Reflect on what you're reading. What I mean by that specifically is to make that your own. A lot of actors would do this. It's active experiencing where they try on the role and they can feel the motivation that's behind it. So you don't want to just read something or memorize something that's rote. You want to get into character, right? So I want you to take time as you're reading it to actually take some time afterwards to reflect on the meaning of those words. Now the third R for memorizing your lines quicker is this thing called writing. And you're like, Jim, how's your spelling doing? Writing with an R, if you will. So what do I mean about writing? I mean actually handwriting what you want to memorize word for word, using handwriting, not typing. And here's why. Studies suggest you're likely to remember 40% more by handwriting it. 40%. So you want to make sure that you write and you rewrite what you want to memorize. The fourth R for memorizing your lines is this thing called role-playing. Role-playing. And what I'm going to ask you to do as you're memorizing these lines, again, it could be poetry, it could be lyrics to music, it could be a sales script, or it could be lines in a movie, or you're maybe in a play, is to role play it out, because we will always perform better with a live person to work with. So you have a learning buddy to do this with. Now, if you don't have a live person to be present with you to role play, there are apps like Rehearsal that actually mimic that function. Now, the fifth R for memorizing your lines is this thing called reform. Reform. Now, for me, reform is about changing it. Now, you're not changing the words at all, but what you're changing is how you're expressing those words. So we know that the brain thrives on novelty. Things that are novel, things that are new, really stand out in your mind and in your memory. So what could you do without changing the words or the content? What could you do to reform the experience? So this would be where you're actually rehearsing it, but you're using a different tone. Maybe you're using an accent. Maybe using different, whether it's tonality, tempo, volume, or even maybe you're doing it like your favorite cartoon character, like Mickey Mouse. So you're actually going through your lines using different accents, different tonalities, different impressions, and that novelty makes it more memorable. So the 6R for memorizing your line is to ration it, cut it into pieces. So a lot of people have trouble memorizing lines because they look at it and it's this big monster and it's too big, and say, how do you even begin? Bite-sized. That's why I love this quest, because you learn best in bite-sized chunks, very digestible. The other reason why you break it up into bite-sized pieces is because the average attention span is no more than 20 or 30 minutes. That's why we designed the quest this way. And so knowing that, when you're studying, study in 25, 30-minute spurts, because remember, going back to memory, we talk about primacy and recency. You remember stuff in the beginning, at the end. But if you study too long without a break, you create this dip in between where you forget a lot of what you learned in the middle. So you want to be able to ration it into bite-sized pieces and benefit from primacy and recency. The 7th key for memorizing lines is to record. What do I mean by that? Is when you're preparing for, whether it's music, whether it's poetry, whether it's sales script that you have to do word for word, or again, lines for anything, record what you want to remember onto your phone and then listen to it throughout the day when you're cleaning your house, when you're driving, and especially when you're moving, meaning when you're going for a walk or you're exercising, because if you're doing rhythmic motions, it actually enhances your ability to recall information. And finally, the 8th key for memorizing your lines is rouse. Rouse, like arousal, right? You want to stimulate. And this is really using, when I think about this word, I think about my senses, something that's very sensual, using my senses. So specifically is this: your environment gets linked to whatever you're learning at the time. So there was a study where they took subjects and they submersed them in water with breathing devices, and they had to memorize these words. And then they tested them outside the water and then back in the water to see how many they remembered. In which environment do you think they recall the most? Back when they were on land, or back when they were underwater where they learned it initially? Of course, it was underwater. And what the scientists discovered is that when we're learning something, we anchor the environment along with us. So a great brain hack to enhance your memory is to utilize the environment. Meaning, if you're a student and you could study in the room that you're going to be tested in, you're going to do better. That if you are in a meeting, you have to prepare for a meeting or give a speech in front of a group, if you could prepare and study in that room, you'll do better. Now, it's not always practical to be able to do that. So what I recommend actually is to take the environment with you. What do I mean? One of your most powerful senses when it comes to your memory is your sense of smell, your olfactory sense. It's actually the strongest, because maybe we needed to have that sense in place so we could smell something that might be poisonous, that keeps us away from danger. And so knowing that, how can you utilize the sense of smell? Well, I bet you that there's a smell that you have in your life, whether it's a perfume, a cologne, maybe it's a certain fragrance, maybe it's a certain food that will take you back to when you were a child. Is there? That's the power of sense of smell. So what if you did this? When you're studying for that test, or maybe you're learning those lines, or you're learning that language, you have a unique smell. Kind of like, does Pavlov ring a bell? Of course, right? What did Pavlov do? Have a dog, bring out the steak stimulates the dog to get hungry, the dog starts to salivate, and then they ring a bell. And then what happens? They put the dog in state by bringing out the steak again, dog gets hungry, starts salivating, ring a bell. And then after a while of doing that, they can just take the steak out. Dog's just happy doing his thing, ring a bell, the dog will salivate exactly the same amount when he hears the bell. No longer needs the steak because the bell is a substitution and created that state. And that smell helped to reinforce that memory. So how do you use that? You need something that's unique. Imagine you have a unique smell, whether it's a perfume, a cologne, an essential oil, and you wear that specific smell while you're studying that material. And then when you need to perform, you're on stage with those lines, or you're taking that test in that room, you wear that same smell, or you chew that same bubble gum, if you will. Now you're gonna get enhanced memory and recall because you brought the environment with it, like ringing that bell. And there are actually 2 essential oils that I recommend that will enhance your focus and your memory. You probably wanna know what they are. Number 1, I like peppermint. Number 2, rosemary. So peppermint and or rosemary will enhance your memory while you're studying. So there you have it. 8 R's that will enhance your ability to memorize lines quicker, faster, and smarter. Do you remember what they are? Yes, you could peg method it, you could chain link it, you could put it on your home list, you could put it on your body list. There's so many ways to memorize it. So let's review them together really quickly. Number 1 was what? It was to read. Number 2 was to reflect. Number 3 was to write with an R, right? Number 4 was to role play. Number 5 is to reform it. So 6 is to ration, right? Cut it into pieces, memorable pieces. Number 7 is to record and listen it throughout the day, maybe when you work out. And finally, number 8 is to rouse, especially your sense of smell, especially peppermint and rosemary, and then bring those senses back when you need to perform. These are your 8 R's for memorizing your lines faster. So let's talk about your homework. What I want you to do, Superbrain, is this. Find something that's word for you to practice with. Maybe it's a famous speech. Maybe it's lyrics to a song. Maybe it's a piece of poetry. Maybe it's your favorite motivational quotes. And I want you to pick something that inspires you, something that you're interested in or is relevant to you, your passions, or maybe they're your work. And I want you to apply 1 or more of these 8 R's to enhance your ability to remember it. And when you're done with that, I want you to go to our community and share your results, as always, with our tribe. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. I can't wait to see you tomorrow.